The rain hammered Norfolk's asphalt like bullets from heaven, each drop exploding against Emma Rodriguez's stolen Navy uniform as she dragged herself through the pre-dawn darkness. Her left leg screamed with every step, the makeshift tourniquet around her thigh already soaked through with blood that wasn't entirely her own. The base's floodlights cut through the storm like searchlights hunting prey, and Emma knew she looked exactly like what the guards would assume her to be, another desperate faker trying to talk her way onto a military installation. She checked her watch. 2:47 hours. 13 minutes until the cell expected her check-in. If she missed it, if they suspected she'd been compromised, 23 years of careful planning would culminate in an explosion that would make the USS Cole bombing look like a training accident. The Norfolk Naval Base gate materialized through the rain like a fortress wall. Two guards stood under the checkpoint's protective overhang, their M4 carbines held with the casual competence of men who'd done this dance 1,000 times before. Security cameras tracked Emma's approach with mechanical precision, their red recording lights blinking like digital eyes in the storm. "Stop right there." Petty Officer Marcus Chen stepped forward, his weapon raised but not quite pointed. His partner, Seaman Rodriguez, no relation, Emma noted grimly, flanked left with textbook precision. "Identify yourself and state your business." Emma forced herself to limp faster, injecting just enough desperation into her voice to sell the performance. "Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell, SEAL Team 4, she gasped, fumbling for the forged credentials tucked inside her blood-stained jacket. "I need immediate access. Lives are at stake." Chen's eyes narrowed as he studied the ID card, his tactical flashlight illuminating details that Emma prayed would pass muster in the storm's chaos. The document was good, the best that 18 months embedded with the Crimson Dawn terrorist cell could buy, but military security had evolved since her last legitimate access codes. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to slow down and explain the situation," Chen said, his tone shifting into that careful neutrality MPs used when something felt wrong. "Your name's not showing up in our access logs, and that uniform." He paused, his light playing across the insignia on Emma's chest. "Those SEAL tridents are positioned incorrectly." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd known the uniform was imperfect, but in the chaos of her extraction from the cell's safe house, it was all she could grab before bullets started flying. Agent David Park, her handler for the past 6 months, lay dead in that house now, his throat opened by Crimson Dawn's enforcer when they discovered the surveillance equipment hidden in his laptop bag. "I've been undercover for months," Emma said, letting real exhaustion creep into her voice. "Deep cover, the kind where you don't get to practice uniform regulations." She stepped closer, nodding how Seaman Rodriguez's grip tightened on his weapon. "Check with Commander Sarah Voss, Naval Special Warfare Command. Authorization code Trident 7. The phrase hit Chen like a physical blow. His face went pale under the checkpoint's harsh lighting, and Emma saw his finger move away from his trigger. Trident 7 was a legitimate code, or had been, before Crimson Dawn's mole inside naval intelligence had compromised it 3 weeks ago. "Rodriguez, call it in," Chen ordered, never taking his eyes off Emma. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to keep your hands visible while we verify your credentials." Emma nodded, fighting to keep her breathing steady as Rodriguez spoke into his radio. Every second stretched like an hour. In the distance, she could hear the base coming alive, the rumble of early morning PT formations, the whine of aircraft engines warming up for dawn patrols. Normal sounds of a military installation that had no idea 12 truck bombs were positioned in a perfect circle around Norfolk's nuclear facilities. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the rain. "Command, this is Gate 7. I've got a female subject claiming to be Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell, SEAL Team 4, requesting emergency access under Authorization Trident 7. She's in pretty rough shape, sir." The radio squawked back immediately. "Gate 7, negative on that authorization. Trident 7 was compromised and deactivated 72 hours ago. Detained subject for questioning. Emma's blood turned to ice water. Park had promised her the codes would hold for another week. His death must have triggered an immediate security review. Now she was stranded at the gate with forged credentials, a stolen uniform, and a micro-drive full of intelligence that could save thousands of lives, if she could get it to the right people before the cell realized she'd gone dark. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to place your hands behind your back," Chen said, his weapon now definitely pointed at Emma's center mass. "You're being detained on suspicion of stolen valor and attempted unauthorized access to a military installation." "You don't understand," Emma said, backing away despite the pain lancing through her leg. "There's going to be an attack, multiple targets. I have intelligence that—" "Sure you do," Rodriguez interrupted, producing flex cuffs from his duty belt. "Every stolen valor case has some urgent mission only they can complete. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Now." Emma's mind raced through her options. She could try to run, but her injured leg wouldn't carry her far, and these guards looked like they could shoot the wings off a fly in this storm. She could attempt to fight, but her training emphasized that sometimes the best tactical decision was temporary surrender. The mission required her to get inside the base, and right now, being arrested was still technically getting inside. As Rodriguez approached with the restraints, Emma palmed the microdrive from her jacket's hidden pocket. The device was smaller than a contact lens but contained terabytes of data, bomb locations, cell member identities, planned escape routes, and most crucially, the identity of Crimson Dawn's mole inside naval intelligence. She'd risked everything to steal this information, watching from a closet as they'd tortured Park to death for what he might have known. "I'm telling you people are going to die," Emma said, allowing Rodriguez to spin her around and secure her hands. As the plastic restraints bit into her wrists, she tilted her head back as if in frustration, letting the microdrive slide down her throat like a bitter pill. "Check with Admiral Harrison at JSOC. He'll verify my identity." Chen was already on his radio again, running through a list of contacts that Emma knew would lead nowhere. Her real identity was buried under so many layers of classification that even she sometimes forgot which name was actually printed on her birth certificate. The CIA's Special Activities Division didn't exist in any database these guards could access, and her cover story was designed to fragment under pressure. Better to be thought a fraud than to blow an operation that had taken 3 years to develop. The guard shack's door opened with a metallic screech, revealing Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, the night shift supervisor. She was a compact woman with scars on her knuckles and eyes that had seen too much, and Emma recognized the type immediately. Career military, probably multiple combat deployments, zero tolerance for bullshit. "What's the situation, Chen?" Santos asked, studying Emma with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating potential prey. "Stolen valor case, Sarge. Claims to be SEAL Team 4, but her credentials don't check out and her uniform's all wrong." Chen gestured at Emma's blood-stained appearance. "Says she has intelligence about some kind of attack." Santos circled Emma like a shark, noting every detail from the incorrect insignia placement to the improvised bandage around her thigh. "You know what I hate most about stolen valor cases?" she asked conversationally. "It's not just the disrespect to the uniform. It's the way they always claim to have some crucial mission that only they can complete, like they're the hero in their own little movie." Emma remained silent, conserving her energy for what was coming. Santos was smart enough to be dangerous, but maybe smart enough to listen when the truth finally came out. "Here's what's going to happen," Santos continued, producing a digital camera from her pocket. "We're going to photograph you, run your prints, and find out exactly who you really are. Then you're going to spend a very uncomfortable night in base lockup while the FBI decides whether they want to press federal charges." The camera's flash exploded in Emma's face. leaving purple afterimages dancing across her vision. As Santos snapped photo after photo, Emma caught a glimpse of the base's main entrance beyond the checkpoint. Somewhere inside that maze of buildings and security barriers was Commander Sarah Voss, the one person who could verify Emma's true identity and authorize emergency protocols. But Voss was also the target of tonight's operation, marked for assassination by Crimson Dawn because of her work developing new counterterrorism protocols. "Wait," Emma said suddenly, a desperate plan forming in her mind. "Before you lock me up, let me ask you something. How many terrorist attacks has Norfolk experienced in the past 5 years?" Santos paused in her photography. "That's classified information." "0," Emma continued. "But how many attempts have been thwarted? How many threats neutralized before they could develop? You think that's luck?" "I think that's good intelligence work and better security," Santos replied. But Emma caught the flicker of uncertainty in her expression. "It's people like me," Emma pressed on. "People willing to disappear for months or years, to become someone else entirely, to get close enough to the enemy to learn their plans. You think anyone volunteers for that kind of assignment? You think the CIA sends people undercover for 18 months just for fun?" Chen shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, if you're really CIA, then where's your handler? Where's your backup? Where's anyone who can vouch for you?" Emma's throat tightened. "My handler is dead. Killed 3 hours ago because someone inside this base is feeding information to the people planning tonight's attack. My backup is compromised. And the only person who can vouch for me is probably marked for assassination right now." The guards exchanged glances. Santos lowered her camera slightly, her expression thoughtful. In the distance, Emma heard the rumble of approaching vehicles, heavy engines moving fast through the storm. Her heart leaped. Please let it be the cavalry. Please let Morrison have received her emergency beacon before Park died. "Sarge," Rodriguez called from the radio station, his voice tight with confusion. "I've got multiple vehicles approaching the gate. Fast movers, no IDs broadcasting." Santos cursed and moved to the window. Through the rain-streaked glass, Emma could see headlights cutting through the darkness like falling stars. The engines were getting louder closer, and she recognized the distinctive sound of military vehicles pushed beyond their normal operational limits. "How many?" Santos demanded. "Looks like 3, maybe 4 SUVs, black ones, they're not slowing down." Emma closed her eyes and allowed herself one moment of hope. If Morrison had gotten her signal, if he'd managed to convince his chain of command that the threat was real, then maybe, just maybe, this nightmare would end without thousands of innocent people dying. The first vehicle screamed to a halt outside the checkpoint with a squeal of brakes and a spray of rainwater. Car doors slammed with the precision of a military drill, and Emma heard the unmistakable sound of tactical gear being adjusted, weapons being checked, hard men preparing for violence. Through the guard shack's window, she saw them emerging from the storm like avenging angels in battle dress uniforms. 12 figures, moving with the lethal grace that came only from years of training in humanity's most dangerous profession. Their faces were painted with camouflage and rain, their eyes hidden behind tactical goggles, their weapons held with the casual competence of men who'd used them in anger more times than they could count. Navy SEALs. Emma's throat tightened with relief so intense it was almost painful. Morrison had come for her. The lead figure approached the checkpoint with ground-eating strides, and Emma recognized the walk even before she saw his face. Commander Jake Morrison, call sign Reaper, the man who'd recruited her for this mission 3 years ago and promised he'd never leave her behind enemy lines. Santos reached for her sidearm, but Chen grabbed her wrist. "Sarge, those are SEALs, real ones." "I can see that, Chen. Question is, what the hell are they doing at my gate at 0300 hours? Morrison reached the checkpoint door and didn't bother knocking. He simply opened it and stepped inside, water streaming from his gear like he'd walked up from the bottom of the ocean. When he spoke, His voice carried the kind of authority that came from leading men into impossible situations and bringing them home alive. "Release her now." The guard shack fell silent except for the drumming of rain against metal and the steady drip of water from Morrison's tactical gear. Sergeant Santos had her hand frozen halfway to her holster, caught between military protocol and the primal recognition that the man standing before her was several levels above her pay grade and probably twice as dangerous as he looked. Morrison's eyes found Emma through the crowd of guards, cataloging her injuries with the clinical precision of someone who'd seen too many operations go sideways. Blood loss, exhaustion, possible concussion from the way she was favoring her left side, but alive, still breathing, still in the fight. "Commander," Santos said carefully, "this woman was attempting to gain unauthorized access using fraudulent credentials. She claims to be Lieutenant Colonel Emma Rodriguez, Special Activities Division," Morrison interrupted, producing a tablet from his tactical vest. 18 months deep cover with the Crimson Dawn terrorist cell, operating under the cover identity Sarah Mitchell. He swiped across the screen, displaying classified documents that made Santos's face go pale. "These are her real orders, Sergeant, signed by the Director of the CIA and countersigned by the Secretary of Defense." Chen's grip loosened on his rifle. "Sir, those authorization codes she gave us were flagged as compromised." "Because they were," Morrison replied grimly. 72 hours ago, we discovered that Crimson Dawn has a mole inside naval intelligence, someone with access to our operational security protocols." His gaze swept across the guards like a targeting laser. "Someone who's been feeding them information for at least 6 months. Emma felt the microdrive settling uncomfortably in her stomach, its sharp edges a constant reminder of the intelligence she'd literally swallowed to keep it safe. The data on that device would expose not just the mole, but the entire network of American citizens who'd been recruited by Crimson Dawn over the past 3 years. Sleeper agents embedded in military installations, defense contractors, even local law enforcement. Santos was studying Morrison's tablet with the expression of someone trying to read hieroglyphics. "Sir, I don't have clearance to verify these documents. I'm going to need to contact Base Commander Thompson," Morrison finished. "Already done. He should be arriving momentarily with the rest of the verification you'll need." As if summoned by his words, another set of headlights appeared through the storm, moving fast toward the checkpoint. Rodriguez, Seaman Rodriguez, Emma reminded herself, was still manning the radio, his voice crackling through reports to various command centers around the base. "Gate 7 to command. We have multiple SEAL team personnel on site requesting immediate access. Commander Morrison is presenting classified authorization documents." The approaching vehicle resolved into a black sedan with government plates, its occupants clearly not bothering with normal base traffic protocols. It slammed to a halt beside Morrison's convoy, and Emma felt her heart sink as she recognized the man who emerged from the passenger seat. Admiral Marcus Webb, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. The man who'd briefed her personally before this mission began, who'd assured her that operational security was airtight, who'd promised that her cover identity would hold until the mission was complete. The same man who, according to the intelligence on the microdrive currently dissolving in her stomach acid, had been feeding Crimson Dawn classified information for the past 18 months. Webb approached the checkpoint with the confident stride of someone accustomed to having doors opened for him. His uniform was immaculate despite the storm, his silver hair perfectly styled even in the wind and rain. When he spoke, his voice carried the kind of smooth authority that had gotten him through 30 years of military bureaucracy. "Commander Morrison," Webb said warmly, extending his hand. "I got your message about a compromised operation. I came immediately to help sort this out." Emma's blood turned to ice water. Morrison didn't know. Somehow, in all the intelligence gathering and mission planning, they'd missed the fact that Webb was dirty. And now the mole was standing 10 feet away from her, close enough to ensure that neither she nor the intelligence she carried would ever see daylight again. Morrison shook Webb's hand, his expression professionally neutral. "Admiral, thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires immediate resolution." "Of course," Webb replied, his eyes finding Emma with what looked like concern but felt like a predator sizing up wounded prey. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez. My God, what happened to her?" "Her cover was blown 6 hours ago," Morrison explained. "Her handler was killed during extraction. She managed to escape with critical intelligence about an imminent terrorist attack, but she's been operating without backup since then." Webb nodded gravely, playing his part perfectly. "Terrible business. These deep cover operations are always risky." He stepped closer to Emma, and she caught the faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with gun oil. "Colonel, I'm Admiral Webb, Naval Intelligence. I need you to tell me exactly what intelligence you've gathered. Lives may depend on it." Emma forced herself to meet his gaze, knowing that her life, and the lives of everyone on this base, depended on her next words. Webb was smooth, professional, completely believable. If she accused him without proof, he'd simply claim she was suffering from operational stress and paranoia. The micro-drive in her stomach was her only evidence, and it would take hours to retrieve safely. "The attack is planned for dawn," Emma said carefully, sticking to information that Crimson Dawn already knew she possessed. "Multiple truck bombs positioned around Norfolk's critical infrastructure. They're calling it Operation Righteous Fire." Webb's expression didn't change, but Emma caught the microscopic flicker of his left eyelid, a tell she'd observed during their pre-mission briefings when he was processing unexpected information. He knew about Operation Righteous Fire, but not that she knew he knew. "How many vehicles?" Morrison demanded. "What targets?" Emma hesitated, acutely aware that Webb was memorizing every word. I need medical attention first. The blood loss is affecting my memory. There are details I'm forgetting." It was a stall tactic, and Webb knew it. His smile never wavered, but Emma saw his right hand drift casually toward the sidearm holstered beneath his dress jacket. "Colonel," Webb said gently, "I understand you've been through trauma, but time is critical. If there's an attack planned for dawn, that gives us less than 3 hours to respond. Every detail could save lives." Behind Webb, Emma noticed that Morrison's team was positioning themselves with subtle precision. Nothing obvious, just professional spacing that would give them clear fields of fire if the situation deteriorated. Morrison himself was studying Webb with the calculating gaze of a man who'd learned to read people's intentions in places where mistakes meant death. "Admiral," Morrison said slowly, "I'm curious how you knew to come here tonight. My message to base command was classified urgent, but it didn't mention specific personnel or operational details." Webb's smile widened slightly. "Commander, when SEAL Team 6 starts demanding immediate access to Norfolk at 0300 hours, word travels fast through the intelligence community. I was already on base reviewing security protocols when the call came in." Emma felt the pieces clicking together in her mind like rounds being chambered. Webb was here because he'd been waiting for her. Crimson Dawn had told him their infiltrator had been discovered, and he'd come to ensure that she and her intelligence never reached the right people. The perfect inside man, positioned to intercept threats before they could develop into actual security breaches. "Sergeant Santos," Morrison said, "I need to speak with Colonel Rodriguez privately. Is there a secure room we can use?" Santos nodded toward a door marked Interview Room. "Yes, sir. But, sir, protocol requires that I maintain visual contact with any detained personnel until—" "The colonel is no longer detained," Morrison interrupted. "She's been transferred to my custody under Special Operations Command authority." He gestured to one of his men, a compact Latino operator with sergeant stripes. "Master Sergeant Vasquez will coordinate with your security team to establish a perimeter." Webb stepped forward smoothly. "Commander, I appreciate your concern for operational security, but as Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, I need to debrief Colonel Rodriguez immediately. The intelligence she's carrying falls under my jurisdiction." The two men faced each other across the checkpoint, and Emma felt the tension ratcheting up like a spring under compression. Morrison's hand had drifted to his holstered pistol, while Webb maintained his diplomatic smile, despite the fact that 12 heavily armed SEALs were studying him like he might suddenly grow fangs. "Admiral," Morrison said carefully, "with all due respect, this is a special operations matter. Colonel Rodriguez is under my operational command until mission completion. And with all due respect, Commander, national intelligence gathering supersedes special operations protocols when it comes to foreign terrorist threats." Webb's voice carried just a hint of steel beneath the diplomatic veneer. "I'm sure you understand the importance of proper channels." Emma realized they were about to start a jurisdictional pissing contest while Crimson Dawn's countdown clock kept ticking toward 0 hour. In less than 3 hours, 12 truck bombs would turn Norfolk into a crater, and she was the only person who knew their exact locations. The microdrive in her stomach contained GPS coordinates, target priorities, even the specific types of explosives being used. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade, "there's something you both need to know." Every eye in the checkpoint turned toward her. Santos and her guards, Morrison and his team, Webb with his perfectly maintained expression of concern. Emma took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would either save thousands of lives or get her killed in the next 30 seconds. "The operation has been compromised from the beginning," she said, meeting Webb's gaze directly. "Crimson Dawn has a mole inside naval intelligence, someone with access to our deepest operational secrets, someone who's been feeding them information for months." Webb's face went through a masterful performance of shock and concern. "My God, do you know who it is?" Emma smiled, tasting blood from where she'd bitten her tongue during the arrest. "Oh yes, Admiral, I know exactly who it is." Morrison's hand was now resting openly on his pistol grip. "Colonel, are you saying that someone in this room?" The checkpoint's radio crackled to life, interrupting him. "Gate 7, this is Overwatch. We have multiple vehicles approaching your position from the southeast. Unmarked vans moving fast, no radio contact." Santos cursed and moved to the window. Through the rain, Emma could see headlights cutting through the darkness, but these weren't military vehicles. These were civilian vans, the kind that Crimson Dawn used for their mobile operations, the kind that could carry enough explosives to level a city block. "That's them," Emma whispered. "Webb called them. He's been stalling us while his people moved into position." Webb's diplomatic mask finally slipped. His hand moved toward his weapon with practiced speed, but 12 Navy SEALs were faster. The checkpoint erupted into controlled chaos as Morrison's team took defensive positions, their weapons trained on Webb while maintaining situational awareness of the approaching vehicles. "Admiral Marcus Webb," Morrison said, his voice deadly calm, "you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and providing material support to terrorist organizations." Webb laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You have no proof, Commander, and in about 30 seconds you're going to have bigger problems than accusations from a traumatized deep-cover operative." The first van screamed around the checkpoint's outer perimeter, its engine roaring as it accelerated toward the main gate. Emma could see muzzle flashes from its windows, automatic weapons fire designed to suppress the guards and create chaos for whatever came next. "Defensive positions," Morrison barked. "Santos, get your people to cover. Rodriguez, can you move?" Emma tested her injured leg, feeling fresh blood seeping through the improvised bandage. "I can move, but Admiral Webb needs to stay alive. He's the only one who can call off Crimson Dawn's attack." Webb smiled coldly. "I'm afraid that's not quite true, Colonel. You see, Operation Righteous Fire isn't just about the truck bombs. Those were always meant to be a distraction. His eyes glittered with fanatic fervor. The real target is sitting right beneath our feet. Emma's heart stopped. The submarine pens. 3 nuclear submarines undergoing maintenance, Webb confirmed. With their reactors running at minimum power, just enough to keep their systems online. Crimson Dawn's chemists have developed a new type of explosive specifically designed to breach nuclear containment systems. When those submarines go up, the radioactive fallout will make Chernobyl look like a minor industrial accident. The checkpoint windows exploded inward as automatic weapons fire raked the building. Glass and concrete fragments filled the air like deadly snow, and Emma heard Santos screaming orders to her guards over the chaos. Morrison's team was returning fire with disciplined precision, but they were outnumbered and fighting from a fixed position against mobile attackers. The microdrive, Emma gasped, doubling over as stomach acid burned her throat. I have the locations of all their people, all their explosives, but I need to get it out safely or the intelligence dies with me. Morrison grabbed her shoulder, his grip firm despite the bullets whistling overhead. What do you need? Medical bay, gastric lavage equipment, and someone who can decode encrypted files while people are shooting at us. Morrison's smile was sharp as a knife blade. Colonel, you've just described a typical Tuesday for my team. The medical bay's fluorescent lights flickered as another explosion rocked Norfolk Naval Base, sending surgical instruments clattering to the floor like metallic rain. Emma lay on the examination table, while Navy Corpsman 3rd Class Jennifer Park, no relation to her dead handler, worked frantically to extract the microdrive from her stomach using equipment that was never designed for battlefield intelligence retrieval. Hold still, Park muttered, adjusting the gastric lavage tube with steady hands despite the chaos erupting outside. This would be a lot easier if people would stop trying to blow up my medical bay. Morrison stood guard by the reinforced door, his rifle trained on the corridor beyond while his earpiece crackled with updates from his scattered team. The Crimson Dawn assault had evolved from a simple extraction attempt into a full-scale terrorist attack, with sleeper agents emerging from deep cover positions throughout the base. Admiral Webb's prediction had been accurate. The truck bombs were just the opening act. "Reaper, this is Ghost," came Master Sergeant Vasquez's voice through Morrison's comm system. "We've neutralized the assault team at Gate 7, but we're seeing movement all across the base. Looks like they had people positioned for weeks." Emma gritted her teeth as the lavage tube triggered another wave of nausea. "How many?" she gasped. "At least 30 active shooters," Morrison replied grimly. "Maybe more. They've been planning this operation for months, using Webb's intelligence to identify security weaknesses and position their people." He paused as gunfire echoed from somewhere deeper in the base. "The submarine pens are under heavy attack. My demolitions expert estimates we have maybe 40 minutes before they breach the first reactor containment." The microdrive finally emerged from Emma's stomach with a wet pop, smaller than a contact lens, but containing enough intelligence to dismantle terrorist networks across 3 continents. Park immediately submerged it in sterile saline, while Emma fought to keep from vomiting the remaining stomach acid that felt like liquid fire in her throat. "Got it," Park announced, holding up the device with surgical tweezers. "Still intact, still functional. Now what?" Morrison was already moving toward the medical bay's computer terminal, a hardened military system designed to interface with classified networks. "Now we find out if Colonel Rodriguez's 18 months of hell were worth it." Emma forced herself upright despite the waves of dizziness washing over her injured body. Her leg was properly bandaged now, and Park had administered enough painkillers to keep her functional, but she could feel her strength bleeding away with each passing minute. "The encryption key," she whispered. "It's a phrase from Crimson Dawn's founding manifesto. Death to the corrupt guardians of false peace." Morrison's fingers flew across the keyboard with surprising grace for a man whose hands were better suited to handling explosives and automatic weapons. The microdrive's contents began to unfold across multiple screens: detailed facility maps, personnel files, operational timelines, and most crucially, the real-time locations of every Crimson Dawn operative currently active on Norfolk Naval Base. Jesus Christ, Morrison breathed, studying the intelligence display. They've been planning this for 3 years. Look at this. They have people inside the reactor maintenance crews, the security rotation schedules, even the mess hall staff. Emma leaned over his shoulder, her vision swimming but her mind razor-sharp as adrenaline and painkillers created a dangerous cocktail in her bloodstream. There, she pointed at a cluster of red dots moving toward submarine Pen Charlie. That's their primary demolitions team. 12 men with shaped charges specifically designed to breach nuclear containment. They'll hit the reactor compartment from below, using maintenance tunnels that Webb gave them access to. Morrison was already relaying coordinates to his team through the tactical network. All call signs: priority target submarine Pen Charlie, maintenance level. 12 tangos with heavy explosives, approach from below, weapons free. The response came back immediately. Reaper, this is Blade. We're pinned down at Pen Alpha by heavy machine gun fire. Can't break contact without leaving the reactors undefended. Another voice. Viper here. Pen Bravo is secure, but we're taking casualties. These guys aren't amateurs. They know exactly where our defensive positions are. Emma studied the intelligence display with growing horror as the full scope of Crimson Dawn's operation became clear. It's not just the submarines, she realized. They're hitting multiple targets simultaneously to overwhelm our response. Look, truck bombs at the fuel depot, the ammunition storage facility, even the base hospital. Morrison's face went stone cold as he absorbed the tactical situation. His 12-man team was exceptional, but they were facing a coordinated assault by an enemy that had spent months learning every inch of the base's layout and defensive capabilities. "Park," he said without looking away from the screens, "I need you to get Colonel Rodriguez to the command bunker. She needs to brief base security on these target locations before." The medical bay's door exploded inward with a thunderclap of shaped charges and flying debris. Emma threw herself sideways as 3 Crimson Dawn operatives poured through the smoking breach, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, their weapons spitting automatic fire in controlled bursts. Morrison moved like liquid lightning, his rifle coming up as he rolled behind an overturned medical cart. His first shot took the lead terrorist in the center of mass, spinning him around and sending his weapon skittering across the tile floor. The second and third operatives dove for cover behind surgical equipment, their return fire sparking off metal surfaces and shattering glass cabinets full of medical supplies. Emma found herself on the floor behind the examination table, her injured leg screaming as she scrambled for the pistol that Park had thoughtfully tucked into her waistband during medical treatment. Her hands shook with exhaustion and blood loss, but 18 months of deep cover training had taught her to function through pain that would drop most people. "The hard drive," Morrison shouted over the gunfire. "Don't let them destroy the intelligence." Park was crawling across the floor toward the computer terminal where the microdrive's contents were still displaying across multiple screens. One of the terrorists spotted her movement and swung his weapon around, but Emma's pistol barked twice, her shots walking up his chest until he toppled backward into a rack of IV stands. The last operative made a desperate rush toward the computer terminal, probably intending to destroy the intelligence rather than allow it to fall into American hands. Morrison's rifle spoke once, a precise shot that dropped the terrorist 3 feet from the terminal, but not before his dying finger triggered a grenade that had been clipped to his tactical vest. "Grenade!" Morrison bellowed, diving toward Emma and Park as the explosive device bounced across the medical bay floor with the metallic sound of impending death. Emma's world compressed into a single moment of perfect clarity. The grenade was rolling directly toward the computer terminal, where 3 years of intelligence gathering was displayed in all its devastating detail. If that terminal was destroyed, thousands of people would die, because no one would know where Crimson Dawn's remaining operatives were positioned. Without conscious thought, Emma launched herself across the medical bay floor, her injured leg collapsing beneath her as she stretched toward the grenade with desperate fingers. She managed to knock it away from the terminal just as it detonated, the explosion lifting her off the ground and slamming her into the far wall with bone-crushing force. The world went white, then red, then faded to gray around the edges as Emma felt consciousness slipping away like water through broken fingers. But through the ringing in her ears, she could hear Morrison's voice shouting coordinates into his radio, directing his team toward targets that only her intelligence could identify. All call signs, updated target data coming through now. Penn Charlie Demolition Team is moving through Maintenance Tunnel 7. Blade, you have 12 tangos approaching from your 6 o'clock. Viper, redirect to Fuel Depot. They've got a truck bomb moving toward your position. Emma tried to speak, to tell Morrison about the final phase of Crimson Dawn's operation that she discovered in their planning documents, but her voice came out as nothing more than a whisper lost in the chaos of combat communications. Park was beside her now, checking her pulse and examining the fresh wounds from grenade fragments that had turned her Navy uniform into a patchwork of tears and bloodstains. "She's going into shock," the corpsman reported. "Multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding, definitely concussed. She needs immediate evacuation to a trauma center." "Negative," Emma managed to gasp, grabbing Park's wrist with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. "The submarine reactors, not the real target." Morrison was at her side instantly, his face grim with the knowledge that they were running out of time. "What do you mean?" Emma fought through the waves of pain and disorientation, forcing her mind to focus on the critical intelligence that could still save thousands of lives. "The reactors. Distraction. Real target is," she coughed, tasting blood. "Underground command center. Nuclear launch protocols. They want to steal launch codes for submarine-based missiles." Morrison's face went pale. The Underground Command Center housed the authentication codes for Norfolk's nuclear submarine fleet, codes that could authorize the launch of ballistic missiles anywhere in the world. In the hands of terrorists, those codes would represent the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. "Where?" Morrison demanded. "How many operatives?" Emma's vision was fading, but she forced herself to focus on the intelligence display that was still somehow functional despite the grenade blast. Sub-basement level, access through the old Cold War tunnels. Webb gave them blueprints. Her voice was getting weaker, but the information kept pouring out. 12 men, led by Khalid Hassan himself, the real mastermind behind Crimson Dawn. Morrison was already coordinating with base security, his voice cutting through radio chatter with the authority of someone who'd spent years making life-and-death decisions under impossible pressure. "Command, this is Reaper. Priority Alpha threat to Underground Command Center. Hostile force attempting to breach nuclear launch protocols. I need immediate lockdown of all authentication systems." The response came back immediately. "Reaper, lockdown initiated. But if they breach the command center, they'll have physical access to the primary servers. Even locked down, they might be able to extract the codes." Emma felt herself slipping away as blood loss and shock finally overwhelmed her system. But as consciousness faded, she heard Morrison making the kind of decision that separated ordinary soldiers from legends. "All call signs converge on Underground Command Center. We're going to stop this thing before it starts." Through the haze of approaching unconsciousness, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. 18 months of living as someone else, of watching innocent people die while maintaining her cover, of sacrificing everything to gather intelligence that might never see the light of day. It had all led to this moment. As Morrison and his team raced toward the underground command center, Emma closed her eyes and let the darkness claim her, knowing that 12 Navy SEALs and a micro-drive full of intelligence were the last thing standing between Crimson Dawn and global catastrophe. The final battle for Norfolk Naval Base was about to begin in the deepest, most secure facility on the entire installation. And somewhere in those underground tunnels, the fate of the world would be decided by men who'd sworn to defend freedom against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Even the ones wearing admiral stripes.